It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. I've had a number of reminders that come to mind when I wanted to talk about this Friday Agile, Not So Agile episode of the Daily Stand Up Podcast. And this one is going to be fun, but at the same time interesting. So here we go. I recently had a number of experiences that led me to laugh. A few of those happened on a recent trip when I went to Utah. And one specifically was someone was out shoveling their driveway. Now, that's something that I hate to do, just so you know. It's just one of those things where I'd rather pay somebody to do it. It's backbreaking, it's arduous, and it takes forever. And yeah, just not my cup of tea. But when I was driving through the neighborhood, I saw a guy who was shoveling his driveway, which is fine. He was using a plow, and what he was doing is shooting all of the snow from his driveway into the street. And you could see him shaking his fist at the plow, at the giant snow plow as it drove by, because the giant snow plow would push all of the snow back right in front of his driveway again. And he was so upset over this little thing, it cracked me up. Then later on my drive, I noticed someone who was in a giant man-bearing truck, the F550 dual twin turbo Cummins diesel. I think you get the point. It's just one of those gargantuous trucks that people feel like for whatever reason they're invincible when they drive. And the rear wheel drive truck that you're sliding around all over in the snow, but because it's so big, you feel invincible. Yeah, one of those. And I watched this character get so upset over someone, going too slow in one of the lanes in a really snowy situation that they slammed on the gas, burst around them on the wrong side, passed on the right, blowing, rolling coal, throwing black smoke everywhere. And all of a sudden, their back tire slipped because they were trying to accelerate too quickly and caused a major accident. And I could do nothing more than just shake my head. Later that afternoon, I was at a store and someone was approaching the store and held the door open. And they were leaving the store as someone went in. So they were holding the door for the person going in. And when they let go of the door after they thought the person had cleared the door closed super fast. It had like one of these activated things. I guess it was trying to keep the heat in the store. But the point is, the door closed super fast and ended up bumping the person that went through the door. Now, what I can tell you is it wasn't intentional. The person didn't fall. Everything was okay. But the person inside, instead of being grateful that someone held the door for them, they were totally angry, totally upset over this little thing. So my question for today is, why do people get so angry over little things? It drives me crazy, right? It's just these little things that drive people nuts. I get so many looks sometimes just over little things, and I'm the worst because I just laugh. I can't let it trigger me. So I thought I'd throw out a few possible explanations about why people get so upset over little things. And this way we can at least know why and maybe think it through and address those reasons why when it happens to us. The first one is probably the most important. It's accumulated stress. Sometimes people are already just way past their max. They've had it up to here, right? They're already experiencing the highest level of stress or frustration due to other things that are happening in their lives. When a seemingly insignificant event, like a minor inconvenience or a simple mistake, takes place, they act out based on all of that tied up emotion, which leads to overreaction. And it's so funny to watch. And see, that's where I get in trouble. I think it's funny. But when you have all that accumulated stress, it really does build up and people get frustrated. And yeah, it doesn't put us in a place where we need to be. So when someone is upset over a little thing, keep in mind that they may already have 100 other things going on. It's not our responsibility to be the next person to judge them. All right, let's try number two. Number two is personal triggers. So certain events or actions may serve as triggers for an individual because of something that happened to them in the past. It could be related to beliefs or values that have happened to them. It could be related to things that happen in personal relationships. It could be related to something they have strong feelings about or a cause that they feel strongly attached to. Small things that touch sensitive areas cause major discomfort, so you want to make sure you're aware of personal triggers. Number three, control and expectations. So when things don't go according to plan, or when people feel like they're losing control of a situation, sometimes they react with anger. Even the slightest disruption or deviation from my expected path can seem to be a threat to them and their sense of control that leads to additional frustration and anger. So I think we need to keep in mind that sometimes people just want to be in control of their situation. They want to know what's going on. And if anything deviates, it could cause them to really fall off the track. Or what about their current emotional state? Sometimes we don't know. I'll argue most of the time we don't know what someone's current emotional state is. The emotional state of a person at any given time can greatly affect their response to minor triggers. If someone's already feeling sad, irritable, or overwhelmed, even just a little bit of anger can trigger, a little bit of anything can trigger anger because they may become less tolerant and have far lower emotional resilience. They're not, if you ever hear someone say, I can't deal with that right now, that is emotional state, right? At its finest. It's one of those things where people are just like, I'm done. That is emotional state. Okay, let's look at the next one. Communication breakdown. Miscommunication or misunderstanding can lead to big anger over small things. How many times have you read an email and got really, really angry? You didn't even talk to this person. You don't know what they were thinking or what they were saying. Sometimes what's typed in text doesn't necessarily mean what the person actually wanted to say. Sometimes we take things completely out of context. And I think that if we focus on what we're trying to do and understand that oftentimes people feel misunderstood, rejected, or unheard, that's a big one. Even if the problem's minor, it increases their emotional response and leads to anger. So we need to make sure that we're aware and that we're addressing those things. And of course, the cumulative effects. It's important to understand that anger is not always caused by just a single minor incident. It could be the result of cumulative stress over time. This can be the straw that breaks the camel's back, proverbially, or a seemingly minor incident becomes the catalyst to release all of our pent up frustration. So we need to make sure we identify what our emotional triggers are. We need to identify coping mechanisms for how to deal with them. We need to increase awareness for when other people hit these milestones or roadblocks. And we need to make sure that we practice empathy. The key to dealing with anger is to be empathetic and not react like I do. One of the worst things you could do is laugh it off. And unfortunately, just because of the way I'm built, that is my number one defense. If I see someone getting really all worked up over something, I just kind of nod, shake my head, and laugh. And that's not always the best solution, but it is a solution. And I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't want to let the anger build up inside of you, but you also need to understand that other people may be having a worse day than you are. This is all about practicing compassion and empathy. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you have an amazing weekend. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, make sure you reach out to us. Learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.